Hello, welcome to my little trip down road testing memory lane. Q&A video for you today. Hope you're all having a pleasant Easter. Nice to have the first big break since Christmas, isn't it? It's been a bit of a slog. I've been on my travels. This week I was in Mugello testing the new Aprilia RS V4 Factory 1100 and the Tuono V4 Factory 1100. You can see all of those tests in MCM very soon. I mean, Mugello, what a place. I mean, it rained again. Everywhere I've been on during launch season, it's rained at some point. Got some dry laps in though, but I say Mugello. If there's a racetrack in heaven, I just hope it's Mugello, because I could ride around there forever. It's amazing. I also wanted to wish my good friend Brendan Flanagan all the best in his recovery from cancer treatment. You may have seen Brendan in one of my previous What Makes This Bike Great videos with his beautiful Honda CBX 1000. So hope you get well soon, mate. Also, thank you for all the GSXR 750 love from the video I posted last week when I took my bike around my local roads, otherwise known as the Rutland TT. I absolutely love that bike, it's unbelievable. And also, I've been busy at work. We just made a really nice video pitching the Honda Hornet 1000 against its rivals. And that was a lovely little production by our videographer Joseph Wright. As usual, you have to brace yourself for all the comments that come with these videos, which is nothing to do with the video and nothing to do with me or anything like that. It's just the way of the world in internet land, really, that most of the comments have to say something about how the video was made, what bikes we should have put it against, what was wrong in the video, why our opinion wasn't right, and everything in between. It's expected, and it's happened ever since year dot. And yeah, I don't know why it happens. I don't know why everyone online has to be right. You know, I think that's the kind of the sign of the times at the moment. I mean, you wouldn't really get that in real life, would you? If you were sitting around a table and, well, I suppose there are some people that just want to interject all the time and tell everyone how clever they are and how right they are. But yeah, but there you go. But watch the video anyway. I think it's really good. So let's get on to the first question, which is from Gingerpunk2. Alrighty then, Mr. Neves, here's my latest question stroke predicament. Buyer's remorse. Have you ever purchased a bike that you test rode or rode for a short period of time and liked, but then realised maybe a few weeks or months down the line that you didn't like the bike? I'm currently experiencing some buyer's remorse myself, having purchased a GSX 1000 GX in November last year. Loved it during the 1 hour test window, thought it was the perfect for my needs, but having surpassed the 600 mile mark and having been out with some friends over the nice weather for longer day rides, I now don't like it. Now, it is a fantastic bike, but it's just not the right fit for me and my riding style or preferred use. So now I'm looking to change again. But having gone through the process a lot with other bikes, my friends mock me for constantly changing bikes. I'm a little apprehensive, as each change of bikes costs a chunk of cash. Yes. I'd love to see manufacturers offer longer test ride periods, even if that meant renting the demonstrator on a daily or hourly basis, as I feel you can't truly gauge a bike is fit for you until you put some decent miles on it. Do you or anyone else here know of a decent motorcycle rental company that maybe offers good value or range of bikes to try? This process happened with my track bike until I found the perfect fit, and I really don't want to have that for my road bike without constantly changing and losing cash. First world problems, I know. Cheers as always. Well, very interesting. I mean, I've never bought a bike myself that I've kind of regretted, but I can see why that would happen. I mean, let's go through kind of paragraph by paragraph. So no, I've never had that kind of buyer's remorse. when we're road testing bikes. I think now with so much experience, all the experienced road testers, you can get a pretty good idea of the bike in a short period of time, but that just comes from riding so many bikes. So, you know, very, very rarely do you have a different opinion of a bike after you've ridden it a long time compared to your kind of first impressions. You've got a GSX 1000 GX, which, like you say, is a good bike, but we found quite a lot of issues with it during our tests. But interesting to see why you didn't like it, and you're looking to change again. I'd love to see manufacturers offer longer test ride periods. Well, I suppose some dealerships will let you out for a few hours. You know, I suppose it's a question of kind of phoning around. And are there any hire bike companies? Well, I don't know of many, but at Silverstone you've got Spider Motorcycles, or the Spider Club as it used to be called, and you can hire bikes out for an extended period of time. So I guess that may help if you were going to hire a bike out there that you were going to ride. But it'd be interesting to find out from you guys if there are any motorcycle hire firms that Ginger Punk 2 could try. But, you know, another way of choosing the right bike, I mean, imagine if there were a group of riders out there that had ridden every single type of bike with decades and decades of experience, not tied to a bike manufacturer, so everything they said was truthful, and they're able to place bikes in the kind of hierarchy of things, but they've all got different opinions, so you would align yourself with that person's kind of riding style or opinion or his personality. So for example, a Simon Hargreaves, a Mufga, an Alistair Fagan, a Chris Northover, a Bruce Wilson, a Chris Newbigin, a Mike Armitage, a Chad, or even a me. Bike journalists. I mean, you know, there seems to be a little bit of a fashion at the moment for, and I suppose it's the whole internet thing. I suppose it's because, you know, more and more people have their opinion online and you see it more. But there's this massive distrust of journalists for some reason, you know, as if we're all paid by manufacturers to give good reviews, which is the complete opposite of how it is. You know, even in this Honda Hornet review, everyone said, oh, that's a paid ad for Honda. And I think I've had it just about every group test I've ever done. You know, in the Superbike years, I was paid by Yamaha to say the R1 was the best. I was paid by Honda to say the Blade was the best in 2017. I was paid by Suzuki to say the GSX-R was the best in the K5, K6 days. I was paid by BMW to say the S1000RR was the best. It's people are very, very suspicious for some reason, but you know, that's not true. So anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, reading journalist reports from magazines and YouTube videos and stuff like that is useful. We've all got different opinions. There's no right or wrong opinion, but you can at least align yourself to the journalists that you can kind of relate to the most. And also there's a lot of good YouTubers and influencers out there as well. But, you know, let's not knock motorcycle journalists, because we'll miss them when they're gone. That's for sure. So anyway, I hope you managed to find the bike of your dreams. You didn't say what your track bike was either, so it'd be interesting to know. But thanks very much for your question. Next is from Pop. Jay Sweek. Hi Michael, wonder if you could talk about how riders in Britain deal with colder, wetter road conditions as opposed to the ideal dry summer days. I'm in California, very nice, and our riding season is basically year round, but I'm seeing much wetter winters these past couple of years, hence wanting to get the best advice from the old country. What would be a road temperature that you think is unsafe for tyres to grip? How do we find the confidence to have some reasonable fun on twisty wet surfaces? Thanks and love these videos. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, I mean, Britain definitely hasn't got the same kind of riding season as you do in California. I'm very jealous. I would say that most leisure riders don't go out in the British winter anyway, you know, not least because the roads are heavily salted and people don't want to get their pride and joys, you know, rusted up and corroded. There's a lot of riders that do ride year round, you know, for work or because they haven't got a car or they just enjoy it. But, you know, the lion's share of people get their bikes out in the spring and put them away in the autumn. So that's the first thing. You know, if you've got so much nice weather in California, do you want to ride all year round? Well, if you do, I would say there are three main things you've got to think of. Choosing the right tyres is the big one. So when you say, you know, what temperatures do tyres become unsafe for grip? Well, it depends on the type of tyre. So, you know, in simple terms, the less sporty the tyre, the better it works in lower and wetter temperatures. So sports touring tyres will work in sub-zero conditions in the wet, and they're really safe and they're really durable. Then you've got sports tyres, which kind of work in cold conditions, but they'll also stretch to work in hot conditions and do some track days. Then you've got the kind of middle ground between sports and track day tyres, which will kind of work as all-rounders, but not so well in the wet and the cold. And then you've got kind of track day, road compound track day tyres, which a lot of them don't really like being in temperatures under 10 degrees. So, you know, choosing the right tyres for the conditions is important, and that will give you the most confidence and help you enjoy the bike the most. Then I would say suspension. So a bike that's set up for nice dry roads on nice sticky tyres isn't going to be as nice to ride as a bike that's, what am I trying to say? Basically, if your bike's too stiff, it's not going to work well in the wet. You need a lot of movement. You need a lot of weight transfer when you're braking and accelerating to help the tyres dig in. You need a little bit of sag and a little bit of suppleness mid-corner to help the tyres dig in. So, you know, soft is best in the cold and the wet. And then, you know, as you start to put more force through the tyres, when you start generating more braking force and acceleration force, you need to stiffen the suspension up. And then finally is having the right riding kit. You know, if you're riding in cold conditions and you're cold and miserable, you're just not going to enjoy it. So, you know, in the winter, I wear heated gloves and I wear waterproof like mittens over the top of the heated gloves. And even in the absolute snowy, horrible conditions and icy conditions, your hands stay nice and warm. Heated clothing is really good, or lots of layers are really good. So they're the three things really. You know, if you're going to ride in less than ideal conditions, the right tyres, soft suspension and nice warm kit. But for the rest of the time, I guess you're going to be California dreaming in the sunshine. But thanks very much for your question. Next one from Orim Ezabelskis, 890. Thanks for your question. Hi Michael, just wondering what's actually happening when slicks wear out on track. We all know road tyres need tread to disperse water and they square off. But the tyres on the track hardly wear in the centre part and don't have to deal with road challenges. Please, PS, thanks for the Jigsaw video. Can't wait for the real deal, but it's out now. So yeah, what happens with slicks on track when they start to wear out? Well, slicks still have wear indicators. They've got these little holes dotted over the tread, as they call it. And when they start to wear down, that will give you a good gauge of when the tyres have worn out. When you're riding, you can feel a slick degrading because it won't give you as much grip. And that really kind of accentuates if you're using the wrong compound for the track conditions and the track temperature. So if you use a real soft slick in the cold, it will shred like it's been through a cheese grater almost instantly. So you need to make sure the slick matches the track conditions. And then when you've got things like track day slicks, they act like road compound tyres, and they're much more durable and still really sticky. But the two real signs that they're worn out is, number one, they'll lose grip, and number two, because the compounds are so soft, they start to really wear down one side. So if you've got a right-handed track and you're leant over and asking a lot from the tyre, you'll maybe, after a whole day's riding, you can look down at the tyre profile and you'll see that one side is kind of nice and rounded and the other side is just flat. So it's not exactly a triangle, it's kind of half a triangle, and that's when you know when the tyres start to really wear out. And then as a result of that, the steering isn't as smooth as you start to lean over as you go from the round part of the tyre to the kind of the flat part of the tyre, and the tyres just degrade. Unfortunately, slicks aren't designed to last as long as road tyres unless they're real hard compound endurance slicks. So for example, SC3 compound Pirelli slicks last pretty well, but then track day slicks like Metzeler TD slicks are fantastic. They'll last a long time, even on a superbike, and they'll probably be within a second of a proper racing slick. So they're the ones to go for. Thanks very much for your question. Next is from Hello Moto S2P. Is it weird that I do better on anti-clockwise tracks? It's a really big downfall for me, as I can go left better than I can go right, and I haven't found a track in the UK that does it. I wish they'd do days where they reverse it. It would be so good for me, as I'm in my 40s now and there's no changing it at this point. Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I'd say there is one left-handed track that I know of, and that is the reverse of Knock Hill. And I think that somebody told me that Bedford Autodrome is anti-clockwise. I'm not sure. And Rockingham used to be anti-clockwise in the international layout as well. And if you go to foreign track days, a lot of Spanish tracks like Valencia and Aragon are left-handers. Phillip Island, there are quite a lot of left-handed tracks in the world, but that doesn't help you in the UK, does it? But what will help is maybe a little bit of friendly advice about left-handers. So if you can go left better than right, you're obviously doing what you need to do on the bike to get around the left-handers properly. You've probably got a good braking style, you've got a good body position as you're leaning into the left-handers, and good feel for the bike. So when people have a favourite side, they've generally got a different body position on one side to the other. So their favourite side, they'll be have their inside arm bent, and 99 times out of 100, as I saw often instructing at the Haslam school, their least favourite side, they've got their arm straight, and it's a downward spiral because they're not as comfortable. Because they've got this straight arm, they're tensing up more in the corner and they're making their arm even straighter, which stops that kind of natural flow when you're leaning into the corner. It stops you leaning over the front wheel because you've got your arm straight and it's pushing you back, so you haven't got as much feel and you haven't got as much grip. And it's sort of keeping you more upright on the bike as well. So the bike's going to carry more lean in the corner than if you've got your inside arm bent and keeping the bike more upright. So the reason the mid corner body position is like it is on the track, so you're hanging off and you're leant right over the front, and to lean over the front to get there you have to bend your arm. So when you've done that, you're keeping the bike more upright around the corner, so it's safer and you've got more grip. And then you're right over the front wheel, so you can come into the corner faster off the throttle and turn. You've got more feel and more grip, and it's just going to give you kind of more confidence and more flow in general. Even when it's time to come out of the corner, because you're leant more over the front because you've got your arm bent, the bike's going to wheelie less and just feel more stable. You're going to feel more part of the bike. You know, all the time on a bike around the track, you want to be riding it like a jockey. You want to be kind of cuddling it. You want to feel the tank on your chest and be in it. The only time you're really kind of sitting outside the bike is when you're braking and you're sitting up. The rest of the time you want to be crouched right forward. And if you've got a straight inside arm, you'll never be able to get there. So what I would suggest is if you're able to, if you've had them taken before, have a look at some pictures of you on a track day and have a look to see how your riding position changes from left to right. And maybe at your next track day really make a point of keeping that inside arm bent, and in your mind's eye as you're going around the corner, imagine if there was a cone at the apex that you'd be able to elbow it as you went round, you know. And also think about doing the funky chicken as you're going around, you know, whatever it is that's going to make you remember to bend your inside arm is a good thing. Well, you'll have to let me know how you get on. Thank you very much. Next is from Crom One Hell. As I dilly-dallied outside track on max speed on my bike, not saying it's safe, on track I am extra safe, not trying to bunch up or hit someone. So this is in response to a question a few weeks ago where we talked about somebody on a track day falling off, and the person behind was so close that they hit the rider who'd fallen, and then someone else hit them as well. And we were talking about how to kind of mitigate that and be safer on the track, which basically kind of resulted in us saying you need to keep your distance really on track. If you're slightly faster than somebody but can't quite get by, just go back, give yourself 10-15 seconds and then go again. Or if you are faster than somebody, overtake them down the straight. So hang back before the corner, run through the corner faster than them, and then get them down the straight. If you're right on top of someone else, which you have to be when you're racing, you know, you've got to accept that you might get tangled in their accident, which nobody wants. So, you know, keeping your distance is the best thing. Crom One Hell continues. Currently I'm making some polished aluminium mirrors with carbon fibre frames. Good for track because we all know aluminium doesn't shatter. So there could be solutions if we want them, but then I see people not using their mirrors in traffic. Who's going to use them on track? Well, I can see where you're coming from there, but mirrors on track and looking behind you on track really isn't safe. You know, as an instructor, so you'll be, you know, acutely aware of what's going on behind you, and you'll be able to judge other riders' speeds, you know, when you're instructing and you're trying to keep yourself out of the way in traffic and all the rest of it. But as a track day rider, you just want to be concentrating on what's in front of you. You do not worry about what's behind or make allowances for people that are behind, because if you're catching a rider, you can see what they're doing. You can see where they're braking, how they're cornering, how they're accelerating out of the corner. And then you can make a judgment on how you're going to catch that person and how you're going to get past, or if you're just going to hold back. So if you start nibbling away at that person or even approaching them quite fast and they're looking in their mirrors and see you, if they suddenly make a movement that you're not expecting, then that's going to cause a massive problem. So that is why that person in front should just look forward, and it's up to the person behind to do all the thinking about that that arrangement, what's going on. If you start acting erratically on track because you're worried about what's behind, or if you want to get out of somebody's way, you're going to cause a massive accident. So just keep those polished aluminium mirrors with carbon fibre frames for the road, and don't use them for the track would be my advice. But thanks very much. Next, overthought and understated. Thanks for your question. Given that riding is such a mental activity, what are some of the most significant life skills and lessons that you've learned as a result of riding motorcycles? For me, patience, foresight and awareness of my physical environment would not be as sharp if I weren't a regular rider both on road and track. Interesting. I mean, I think I'd have to agree with you there. I mean, I don't think riding a bike has really given me any massive life lessons, you know, other than I suppose being in an environment when it comes to injuries, you know, motorcycle riders, motorcycle racers, kind of brush off big injuries or even small ones a little bit more readily than the general public. In terms of other life skills, I don't really think it helps. I mean, maybe, you know, when I was racing a lot, you know, having that passion, having a goal, having an aim was a good thing. You know, it stopped me going to the pub when I was training. You know, it made me exercise more. It gave me a feeling of kind of pride and achievement when I was racing. All those things were really good. And, you know, there's a slight amount of smugness, you know, riding a bike, especially on holiday. You know, if you're going through Europe and around the Alps and you're on a bike and other people are stuck in cars or whatever, and you're free, you're there, and, you know, being on a bike is such an incredible thing. So, you know, there's a small thought in your head that, you know, you're discovering something that nobody else may ever discover, and that's a nice feeling. But really, you know, I suppose in a car, it makes you a better car driver because you're a lot more aware and patient. And I think as well, riding a bike on track days or racing makes you a much calmer rider on the road as well. So, but yeah, I'd agree with you. Patience, foresight and awareness of your physical environment, and you wouldn't be as sharp if you weren't a regular rider. I'd agree with that. What would anyone else say? What has kind of riding a bike brought to you in your normal life? Be good to hear. But thanks very much for your question. Next is from Desmi 1103. Hi Nevesy. On the topic of staying out of trouble on track, my question is, how do you avoid or save high sides, low sides and head shakes and steering wobbles? I've seen some saves in Superbike MotoGP, so I do know it's possible in some cases. I do know the basics on the topic, but I feel like many people on YouTube have no idea what they're actually talking about. Obviously, bike setup is a key too, but my question is about the rider. Thanks in advance. Well, interesting. I would say that 95% of saves, whether it's low sides, high sides, tank slaps or whatever, are luck. You know, there are certain things you can do to kind of mitigate those. You know, a top level racer, if the bike starts to high side, they'll move their body on the bike to try and make the high side not as vicious, or to try and control it. Standing up on the pegs, you know, will kind of take the sting out of a high side. You've only got to look at Marquez, how he can control a front wheel slide with his knee and elbow and everything in between. You know, but people like that, they're aliens. You can mitigate head shake sometimes by, you know, having a very light grip on the bars. I remember seeing an interview with Kevin Schwantz when he was talking about racing at Daytona back in the GSXR 750 days. I think it was the first slingshot, and he said that the bike was almost unrideable because it was just wobbling all the way around. And I think Mr. Yoshimura told him just to take all the pressure off the bars and let the bike do its thing, and it would do it. But other than that, I think for normal mortals, it's luck whether you get away with these things. But it's not like luck to stop them happening in the first place. So there are ways to stop a low side going into a corner. You know, there are loads of ways not to low side. There's loads of ways not to high side. There's ways you can ride your bike or bike set up to stop it wobbling. So it's very much prevention rather than cure. And, you know, if you get in one of these big events, high size, low size wobbles, you know, and you get away with it, you kind of got to thank your lucky stars. So that's what I think. What does everyone else think out there? Are there ways to kind of stop these big events on bikes? I mean, I don't personally think there is. I just think you've got to think of ways to avoid it happening in the first place. Thanks for your question. Next is from Matt Simpson 5009. Hey Nevesy, a question: do you ride with loved ones, and if so, do you find yourself constantly looking in the mirrors, making sure they make it around the corner? Do you find yourself over coaching? Always enjoy your videos. Cheers, Matt. Thanks very much. Well, yes, I suppose I ride with two loved ones. One is my brother, One is my girlfriend. My brother is very experienced. He's got more natural talent than I have, but I've got a lot more experience. So, you know, when we're on track, we're more or less the same. And when we're riding, we are. I'm always worried about him, especially when he first started riding. He kind of went from 0 straight to an R6 in about year 2000, something like that. And he was wild. And it used to really, really worry me. And he did have quite a few big, nasty accidents with some serious breaks, as I did back then. I'm sure he was worried about me. And then we started racing together. I always enjoyed it when we raced in separate classes because, I mean, I don't know how the Marquez brothers do it or the Lowe's brothers do it, but I didn't like the competition. I didn't like the feeling if I ever beat him, and I didn't like the feeling if he beat me. And I wanted him to be safe. I remember he crashed once at Thruxton at Church, which is one of the fastest corners on that track, really quick. And he hid the bike behind the tyre wall, and he hid himself behind the tyre wall because he didn't want to worry me going around the track that I'd see his bike crashed at Church and think the worst. When we were racing, it was strange. He's crashed right at my feet around Corham Curve at Snetterton in the wet. And being a racer, part of me thought good because I've got another place. We were right at the front. I think I won that race. But part of me was really worried about him. And there's that permanent push and pull with me and him where part of me is competitive with him, but then part of me is very protective and I don't want to see him get hurt. But it's not so bad now when we don't race together anymore. And if we do, we endurance race together in the same team. And when we ride together on the road, we're much, much calmer nowadays. And then my girlfriend, Nina. So she's just started to ride in the last couple of years. And she's right at the beginning of her riding journey and her riding experience. And she's a safe driver. She's never even had a car crash, touch wood. And she's the same on the bike, but there's nothing stopping me from really worrying about her when I'm riding. So when I'm riding, I'm looking in my mirrors more than I am forward, which part of me is kind of proud that she's doing it and starting to experience all the good things about motorcycles that we all know and love. But part of me is obviously worried as well. So yeah, it's a tricky one. And I know, you know, I'm not alone. Most people who ride with loved ones would feel the same. Or, you know, they've got kids that ride bikes as well and they worry. It's a very conflicting kind of hobby, really. You know, we all know it's incredible, but we all know it's dangerous as well. And we would just hope that everyone we know and love is as careful as we are. And I hope we're careful as well. But great question. Thanks, Matt. Two more. This one's from Geeky Chav. 2176. Hi Neezy, long time listener, first time commenter. Thank you very much. Quick question. I've been on an R7 now for a year, mostly commuting on A roads into the city, the odd ride down country lanes, and have just done one track day, Brand's evening session when you were there on your GSX-R. I remember that. Planning to keep it for another year, hoping to get a handful of track days in this year to hone my skills before upgrading. Do I go for the R9 with all its bells and whistles after an exhaust system? I'm looking at £14,000. Or do I go for a GSX-R 750 for half the price without the extra comforts? My goal is to improve my track and road riding skills while looking cool and having fun. Keep up the great work. Love the videos. Well, good question. What do you do? I mean, I've only ridden the R9 on track at its launch in Seville. I've ridden my GSX-R 750 a lot as well. It's hard to say how they compare like for like until we've actually kind of back to back them, which hopefully we'll do at some point. I suppose you've got to kind of look, you know, at the owning experience. The good thing about the R9 is it's a new bike. Any GSX-R 750 you're going to get, unless you import one from America or Australia, is going to be close to 10 years old now at the very least. So the Yamaha's newer, and with all that newness you've got, you're going to have newer suspension, newer electronics, newer everything. It's going to be sort of a nicer owner-in experience. You know, when you open the garage door to an R9, which looks really good, you know, it's going to make your heart skip a beat a little bit more than a GSX-R, perhaps. I mean, I think the GSX-R looks fantastic as well. The GSX-R hasn't got any rider aids. I'd argue that at that kind of power, you don't really need them anyway. So the GSX-R feels more pure as a result. The GSX-R's got more power. So yeah, it's really difficult to answer your question. I think it's, you know, either bike is going to be amazing, basically. So it's just a question of what you think is going to be the better owning experience. You know, I think if I had the money, what would I do? I think I'd probably still have the GSX-R, but I think the R9 is still incredible, and you know, with the safety of all the electronic bells and whistles, wouldn't be a bad thing, would it really? But yeah, let me know how you get on. I remember you were going really well at brands on the R7, so maybe the R9 is the next logical step, even though it's quite expensive. Great question. And finally, from 8000 Blue. Hi Michael, I hate to appear critical, but why is so much of your content focus on track riding, track bikes, when only a tiny percentage of bikers only go near the track? You are, after all, a road tester. Good point. Well, this little YouTube channel, it's kind of my own personal channel, and you know, it's a way that I can kind of express myself away from my day job. I do really like sports bikes. I don't really think many channels or publications really fly the flag for sports bikes or sports bikes owners anymore. So, you know, hopefully I can do that for people. I would agree that not many new sports bikes get sold, or not many people do track days necessarily, but it doesn't stop people wanting to know about them or want to know about riding tips or any of those things. And yeah, I am a road tester, but I still enjoy sports bikes. And with this channel, I don't have to cover every single bike like I do with my day job. So yeah, I enjoy, you know, this is the last bastion of sort of sports bike love, if you want. But of course I love all sorts of bikes as well. But I suppose the main reason why I talk about sports bikes so much on this is because 80%, maybe 90% of the questions that I get are all sports bike and track related. So, you know, I mainly try and, you know, I answer those questions, even though in any given Q&A episode, I try and choose a selection of questions, even, you know, even if they are heavily sports bike, you know, based. I did a video not so long ago, which was like 100% track free, where I didn't talk about any track riding at all. But yes, it's generally because the people that follow this channel like to talk about sports bikes and track days, as well as other things as well. So I hope that hasn't put you off too much. But there you go. That's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.